kids want to know what advice you have for marriage. They're all headed in that direction now.
I've noticed. Accept each other as they are. Don't try to change them. Love them as they are. The hummingbirds are back.
Jean and I have talked about this before we were married.
Mm-hmm.
And I told Jean at the time, I would never ask you to do anything that I would not do myself.
And he wouldn't. He's a sweetheart.
And the other thing, we have to respect each other as individuals. Because we do have some differences. We're not exactly alike in every way.
He doesn't like Law and Order. or House. Or
2.5 Men, I think that is ridiculous.
Thank you.
I know.
I think that's a terrible program.
We've had some fights about this.
That's a terrible program.
Angie and I have a common tie, you know. We were born on the same day.
And we like 2.5 Men.
I think it's funny.
Well, Jason, you will understand, you do understand that we are individuals. And one of the things I would like to relate to you folks is that you never really enjoy your parents until you're a parent yourself.
That's true.
Never. You don't know what they've gone through to bring you up and raise you like they have and set an example for you. And there we go.
In some ways, and sometimes, it's a bad example, so you know you're going to do differently, right?
Yes.
That's true. His family was very dear. They were.
I was raised in a Christian home, and I knew that these kind of things, you know, I was brought up into a church that my grandfather was the charter elder of. My mother was the first child christened in that church. My mother and dad were married at that church. I went through catechism, which is Christian instruction, through that. I made my profession of faith there. I was married by that minister in my first marriage. I taught Sunday school there. I was on the church board. And as far as I'm concerned, it was just part of life. And even when we changed to a Presbyterian church, which was closer to home because of our kids, because they were involved in the youth group and they went to school with kids there, and we felt like that would help to keep them into the church and so forth in that area. And I was on the church board there, and I was taught Sunday school there too. So you know how your grandma and I met originally, and we feel like the Lord certainly had His hand in this.
Yeah.
He's a sweetheart.
Yeah. Yeah,
You can
parents
find
are very
happiness.
happy.
I mean, we had 57 years. I'd say a good 53 or 54 years were very good.
2 years that were tough. But you know that.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy. Dear Susie, I don't know what I'd have done without her.
Yeah.
But I've often said, and Jean can relate to this, that we are in our golden years of life. And there are going to be some bumps along the road, but we'll stand shoulder to shoulder, supporting one another.
Yeah. You
He's-
guys do. You do.
He's a softie. He's a sweetheart. I
And
am.
my kids love Jean to no end.
Yes.
In fact, every time they call, they say, "Tell Jean we said hello."
That's cute.
He's got kids,
That's awesome.
but we've had time to spend with them too.
Yeah.
Not as much as.
Right.
Hi, Pat.
Hello, folks. How you doing?
We're doing fine. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Yep.
Oh,
And
golly.
Jean has talked to my daughter to the point that I'll tell you,
I was wondering, do you have a specific memory of each one of your kids growing up? Something specific about them that stands out, like when they were kids, really young? Something something they did they got in trouble or?
No, John was in Little League, and we went to all his games, and my mom and dad came to all his games. Al was working at a lot of them. He had was his insurance business, but that was outstanding. He did very well, and was in the All Stars and so forth. Nancy, she was a sweetheart. She was just into everything at school. That very active person, drill team, the whole bit. Carol was kind of a renegade. She didn't want to do all that stuff, but she found her own niche when she went to work for that travel agency, and when they offered her the job in Australia. And she was going to go to Cal State Fullerton, all set. And I said, honey, I'm as an example, you can always get your education, but how many times in your life are you going to have an opportunity to go to Australia and be paid for it?
Yeah.
And she went. And she brought home Peter. She came home because he didn't want to get married at that point in time. She wasn't home she was home less than a month, matter of a few weeks. Hello, Audrey.
Hi.
You're going bike riding?
I'm just going to take a little turn around here just to see if
Oh,
I
good. Be careful.
remember how.
You know, the pool is closed for 6 days.
You told me that.
Yes, it's awful. I can't stand it.
Oh, boy.
This is my dear granddaughter and her fiance, Angela and
Jason.
Jason.
Is it Jason?
Jason.
Jason.
My son's Jason.
Really?
Good name, strong name.
Audrey, don't exceed the speed limit now. It's 15 miles an hour.
Anyhow, I was so thrilled. I mean, we had met Peter, and he took us to dinner when we were there. But she decided if he wasn't going to make a commitment,
Do you have your
she was
cell
going to
phone?
come home.
Pat,
Yes,
do you have your cell phone?
correct.
In case something happens, give us a call.
We'll have to put you in my numbers there. See where she is.
Yeah.
No, last time she did fall.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so
Oh dear.
it's been a while.
And then, so Nancy but Nancy met Roy at John Brown, you know. So that was, and we went after Diane Gleason's wedding. Your grandpa and I drove to Flagstaff, Arizona that night to meet Roy, who was going to be best man at his friend's wedding. It was going to be the next day. So we drove all those hours in the middle of the night in the cab over camper, and met him about 2 o'clock in the morning. He came and we drove in there.
And he wasn't with Nancy.
No, he was there because he was going to be in the wedding, and Nancy was with us. She had gone to Diane's wedding. I don't
okay.
know if she was in it or
Okay.
what, but anyhow, the next day we went down to the canyon there, between Phoenix and Flagstaff, and we ran into the married couple.
Oh,
That was funny because they'd spent their honeymoon that night down
how
there.
funny.
Sedona?
No, between Flagstaff and Phoenix, the big canyon down there. Anyhow, but we met Roy and approved of him, and then we.
You might relate the story, honey, about what Roy said after our wedding, and we were talking about the idea of that Nancy and Roy were married, and then she got her education free because he was on staff.
Oh.
And Roy said, well, add $10,000 to that fee that's they have to pay to get married at our house.
They
You know
didn't,
that?
they didn't get married at our house.
No,
You
I
got
said
married at
us
your house.
getting married at their house.
Oh.
Also, you might relate, honey, to the fact that John was very backward and bashful as a youth there.
Oh,
And
yes.
when, and the story about when Nancy saw him in the lunchroom.
Oh, that's when we first moved there, in junior high. They went to Kramer Intermediate School, and Nancy got 7th grade, John 8th. She says, I feel so bad because John sits there at lunch all by himself. And he was just such a shy kid. And when we went up to, were you up there the night he played at that coffee house? And here's my son out there singing, playing the guitar, totally composed. I mean, he has grown so much. He's gotten so much self-assurance. And I'm so glad he has, because he always felt very insecure. I think we're burning our dinner is what I think we're doing.
It's out on the sink.